what Vivian was just saying, I was actually starting to comment on before you all gathered, which is, I'm just looking at the group and the diversity within the group, age, gender, ethnicity, nationality, so on and so forth, and how important it is that you all, you're at the very front end of the work that we're doing here as a group. Thelmy has been doing it for a long time, and she's not somebody to feel sorry for because she's a champion. She just needs support because she works on many, many fronts. This isn't the only community she works in. It's not the only project, but she really has dedicated a lot of passion and a lot of her life to the idea of social justice and environmental justice in Watts. Monica Shankar, the same thing, many places, many responsibilities, but she's given, 110% of her best to the projects that she participates in here in Watts. And then Vivian, of course, who brings us all together, is just tireless. Sometimes I'm wondering, where does her energy come from? Because, it'll be late at night, early in the morning. And I know I work 17-hour days, and sometimes she's texting me after I go home or before I come to work. So I'm trying to figure out what her day is like. And then, of course, Dr. Ernie Smith, who you all are only briefly meeting now, he's going to say a few words after we start the tour. He's responsible for how many years? 20 years? 20 years monitoring, tracking, and holding the folks accountable for the conditions over at Ujima Village. I think it's safe to say, and I know that you weren't the only one that worked on it, but that project, people would probably still be living there and contracting cancer and leukemia and all the other things that they were being exposed to if it weren't for the community activism, the community advocacy and the championship that, folks like Dr. Smith involved themselves in. The most important thing, though, is you. Because, even though this work has been going on in some cases for decades, you're the most important group right now for me because you're the bridge to the next class. And if the next class sees you show up for their presentation, and then the two groups show up for the next presentation, 6 semesters from now, when we're doing, monumental soil testing in the community, then all of you will see how each of your respective roles played a part in bringing to the public's attention how seriously dangerous all of this is. And, we laugh and joke about certain things, we see the dirt that got past, the entrance to the toxic site when the trucks came out and they tracked it out into the street. I really, really honestly felt like crying a couple weeks ago. I went over there early in the morning, and little moms with their kids walking them to school, waiting for the light to change, and they're leaning against the fence where all of this toxic dirt is. And it's cold and the dust is all over the place, and they're breathing it, and the moms don't know. They think that they're doing what's in the best interest of their child by walking them to school, but on the way to school they walk them into a poisonous field of soil. And so we've got to pretty quickly, we can't wait to do the soil testing, we can't wait for a funding source to pay for the food at the next gathering. We just have to keep doing it just like we're doing it. And to me, this is really glorious. I mean, look at the quality of what you all have produced. Look at the quality of the work that's being done by activists in our community. Look at the quality of an exhibit that we put together, and we haven't seen the first penny, right? So it's not about money, that motivates the good work we do. It's about our passion for right. It's about our passion for social justice. It's about our passion for having a clean environment for the second and third generation from now to live in. Because as Monica and Thelmy will tell you, when these babies that are 0 to 10 or 11 years old ingest the toxins that they're ingesting, it's with them for generations because it goes on through the DNA. It doesn't just disappear. It gets passed on. It's like it's like a terrible, a terrible gift that no one should ever get. So Dr. Smith is actually a professor at Charles Drew University, and we're waiting right now to hear back from the president of Charles Drew, because what we've asked him to consider is to produce not only testing for school-age children, but the treatment that goes along with, eradicating whatever the toxins are, whether that's heavy metal. There are processes, both homeopathic as well as synthetic processes, that will eliminate heavy metals from the system over time. But also just knowing, I went and got my lead tested, and I was all concerned because it's at 2. But then my doctor pointed out to me that there's a little arrow that's either more than or less than. So the arrow on mine says that it's less than 2. And he says that's perfectly okay. Well, I don't think any lead in a child's system is okay. None. Maybe for us elders, maybe the effects of lead, will be surpassed by our age or something else that takes us out before the lead really does its damage. But for a child, there's no reason that we should be tolerating it. So Watts Then and Now is the exhibit that we started with Cal State Dominguez. It was sort of, I like to think that it was the result of Vivian's passion for the relationships, the human relationships that come out of all of this. And she introduced me to Ellie, and Ellie is like 10 times more energetic than the Energizer Bunny. Really, she'd run around, and sometimes she's running around and talking to herself. So she did this beautiful work, and we put this up a few months ago, and the title of it being Watts Then and Now. But as we got more involved in the work we're all doing together, we produced what's called Watts Now. And I think Ellie came with the title, right?
Yeah, Ellie put together this poster out of the images that all of the students in the class and Jorge, why don't you come here, Jorge? Jorge's been the professor of our social justice and law class, been terrific. And also some of the youth at Jordan High contributed to this. And the other poster we'll see is a poster that has images from Rosa Angelica, and we'll have a chance to hear from her as well. Do you want to say anything about the poster?
I think it's a testament to what a good collaboration is amongst the universities and the community organizations. One of the things that we talked about is breaking down the barriers between what is a university and institution that historically has been closed off to members of the community. So I just want to say that it's beautiful, it's great, and I think Tim is right, like it's a start or a continuation of what great things to come. That's very good.
And if the students from Jordan High can raise their hands, who are the students?
I think Rosa Angelica teaches there, and I'm not sure if her students are here.
I actually teach at an after-school program called College Track, and it's in a little bungalow in the Jordan Downs community right next to the high school, and we work from students from Jordan High School. And I have one coming a little later.
Okay, great.
It's a very important program and asset for the community. I want to add because it's an investment in making sure. Why don't you describe it a little bit more, because your goals, your outcomes.
Yeah, so we actually, it's a brand new site. We started in September, and we work with majority students of color, low income, and we're helping them, guide them to college, giving them the resources, the mentorship, the tutoring, and just exposing them to that idea because it's so brand new to them. But I think, I guess I could talk more about the little exhibit, or should I talk about it now?
Well, go ahead.
Oh, okay.
You have the floor.
Yeah. So I grew up in Paramount, but I grew up in a very close space. I was never around over here. And now that I work with these students and have started building these relationships, I see how much their community and just where they live plays such a huge role into how they perceive themselves and their value. And I think that's what made me a little upset, very upset. We walk on Mondays. I teach a storytelling collective, so I teach them creative writing, just how to tell their stories and own their stories as a way to gain more confidence and move forward. And we borrow one of the classrooms in Jordan, the Jordan High School, and so Monday afternoons we walk back our little, like on 103rd and then, or Alameda and then 103rd, and it's, the whole walkway is trash. Like all of it is trash, and it's like, I know all the pieces, like I recognize them since like 3 months ago that I started working there, and it's just like literally like they have to look down to not trip on the trash. This is what they see every day. So how are they to perceive any sort of value for themselves when their life, their ground, their space, their house is trash, and no one does anything about it, no one advocates. So so yeah, that's kind of what I do. I took the pictures that we'll see a little later. My girls, one of them, it started, it was a beautiful sunset, and one of them's like, Miss, I love stepping on broken glass. And she runs over to this, probably like, you know, the glass from a broken car, and she just stomps on it. And I'm like, okay, so I took a picture of it. And then we just started a little photo session right there in the street. But then we had a conversation about, you know, what is this? You shouldn't have to walk on broken glass. And this is how they perceive their life. And so we need to have a conversation, especially with these students, and make them aware of what's going on, because they're the ones that, you know, need to play an active role and understand themselves, because right now they're being, in a sense, victimized, versus we need to teach them how to take ownership of their own community. Who do I reach out to, you know, to make this change happen? Who are our stakeholders, you know, that we need to keep accountable to clean this up, because it's been going on for way too long. And just seeing your presentation, just seeing it's years, and it's like the same trash and toxicity, or if that's toxicity, yeah. So
I think the poster with your images
it's
is
right
right
over
here. This one, the Watts Now, and it actually was the flyer for the exhibit too. So it's the ending, it's the last one, the one that people will take away the idea from this exhibit. So why don't we, again, thanks
So
so
we're gonna-
much.
Thank you.
So we're gonna go on this tour, and the way I'd like to do it is to explain some of the exhibit charts that you'll be looking at, and then when we get around to maybe halfway through, I'd like to hear from Belmy, Monica, and Ernie about the work they do, and then I think that's the best way for you to reveal how similar the conditions are politically that cause this community to suffer such what I call malign neglect. People know, you know, in representative places exactly what the conditions are. I went to USC with Dr. Price and saw the report, saw the publication that resulted from USC, Occidental, UCLA, Cal EPA, all of these different agencies and institutions that really pointed to, you know, Watts being at least one of the most toxic places in Southern California. Of course, there's toxicity all over, but when you look at the community of Watts being a community of interest, only 2.25 miles square, the whole thing is rated at the highest toxicity levels that have been studied. So I'm gonna show you sort of why it's so important for you all not to be connected here today, but to be connected to the next class of students and the one after that and the one after that, because like I told Filmy, I think the way for us to make her work mean the most and make the most difference, the way for Dr. Smith's work to make the most difference, and certainly for Monica's work to mean the most, is for us to try to build critical mass, not try, but to build critical mass of support around the issues. And they've done the work to support the argument that something drastic needs to be done. So let me show you what we've got here.